So I'm an associate here representing WSP. I don't have a specific role in relation to health, safety and wellbeing. I don't have a particular remit. I'm here as part of the management and the leadership of our organisation to talk about how the new work towards wellbeing and a wellbeing environment has kind of impacted on us as a business.
I'm Chris, I'm the Wellbeing Manager at WSP, so I look after the 8,000 employees with wellbeing initiatives. And what I started off with is just getting you to understand that when I came along in 2017, WSP had no wellbeing whatsoever. And it was something that when I joined, I was very passionate about integrating wellbeing into health and safety. And I'm pleased to say that from 2018, when we launched this, we've got Thrive, which is the wellbeing program, built into safety, health, and wellbeing. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, keeping those three together. Again, going back to when I joined at the beginning of each meeting, we used to have a safety moment. Now we have a safety, health, and wellbeing moment. And I want to share one with you today, because we talked about at the beginning about mental health. I'm not from London. I live in the Cotswolds, so you can imagine London is the least favourite place in the world. No offence to anyone who lives in London. So I came to London yesterday. I thought, decent hotel, know where I am, I know where I'm safe. I'll walk to King's Cross and I'll catch the tube to Old Street and walk up from there. I don't know whether everyone else experienced King's Cross was not the fun place this morning. Turned up, not only are there a million people there, there's also a million people on the platform as well. I get huge anxiety and claustrophobic. I was down there for about 5-10 minutes and I realised this is not the place for me. My fight or flight instinct kicked in. I was back at those steps, back out, and I walked all the way here this morning. So yes, I'm still a little bit damp. But this is where it's really important that understanding these signs and symptoms and looking at our safety, health and wellbeing in that collective. I'll just fire it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've talked quite a lot this morning about health, safety and wellbeing and integrating that into the way in which we do things. And for us, it's very clear that a key driver behind that is the leadership of our business and getting leaders to really understand and embed the health, safety and wellbeing message into our leadership culture. So for us, it's been really important to get that engagement and drive that engagement through. And we've done that in a number of ways through our business. First of all, through selling the benefits. So again, we've talked this morning about the bottom line and the fact that actually, when it comes down to it, a lot of what we do is driven by cost and productivity. So we've very much been keen to look at what the benefits are and drive the benefits of wellbeing. So as we've talked, reduced absenteeism and increased productivity of our staff is obviously a key outcome. Another of the benefits is again attraction and retention. So if you have a workforce who are content and who are well looked after, that message gets spread. It's a good company to work for, and that's really important when you go into a company and you get a feel that employees are looked after and that there's generally a buzz around it. So I think for us that's again quite an easy sell from that perspective. And finally, the third thing is just about getting that engagement throughout the organisation and into all of our systems. So the other thing that we've done is around embedding health, safety and wellbeing within things like our quality management system, within our HR system, within recruitment and retention, to really make sure that those messages are driven through. And by that way, what we've tried to do is really embed those messages right from kind of senior leadership down through to team leadership, supervisors, pretty much everybody throughout the supply chain, and really make it something that people can get into.
Good. I think we've established that this key thing here about leadership influences culture and engagement, but also culture can influence leadership and engagement. It really does keep very close links with each other. So just going back to Thrive. So in beginning of 2018, I launched the online health and wellbeing program Thrive and looked at the risk factors. So it's a risk-based strategy. It's not a wellbeing program that's just a nice to have. It's looked at the key risk factors from sickness absence, from use of the EAP, private medical insurance, a whole host of information on what people are saying, what we're seeing, and I've started to look at what do I want it to look at and where do I want it to drive. So I created 5 components: physical, mental, nutritional, social and financial, all identified the key risk factors within the business and all have opportunities for our people to engage into. All right? So it's not forced. We know when they're forced and you're told to do something, we tend to rebel. but we have opportunities to actually go seeking information and take personal ownership of well-being, which we know then drives health and safety.
Okay, so there have been some challenges. As Chris just mentioned, there's been a lot of work done around the Thrive initiative. From a business position though, and from a business point of view, I think it is important that we consider what some of those challenges are and continue to be. The first is around communication. And it's just about getting the message out to people. And the thing that we've found here is it's not necessarily about the volume of staff that we have or the numbers. As Chris mentions, we've got around 8,000 staff within the UK, but it's more about how those staff are distributed around individual offices. Because what we find is that every single office has quite a unique culture and it has quite a unique way of doing things. So although we have a number of corporate messages and we have a corporate identity and a corporate culture, actually when you get into individual offices, it's about influencing it at that level. And again, coming back to what we were saying before, one of the key things we found there is about engaging with those leaders. Because if the leadership really buy in, if they really understand the benefits and they really are happy to sell that to the office members and to the staff members, we found that that's been a key way to overcome challenges. The second, again, touching on this point about culture, is around bringing new cultures into an existing culture. So WSP has acquired a number of businesses over the last few years, but not only that, we work in a number of joint ventures and a number of alliances. And we find that every organisation that you know comes into the WSP family, that they have their own specific way of doing things and their own specific way of getting on. So one of the things that we've done there, the big key is about really early engagement. So for example, when we acquired Opus last year, I think it was, within the first month, Chris and his team had visited every single office with our Opus employees and used it as an opportunity to start talking about our wellbeing programme and helping them to manage their change. So it was a very practical thing. It was about saying, this is the programme that we've got available, this is the support we add, but actually we're not just going to leave you with a leaflet, we're going to do this now, we're going to help you through this change. And again, that has a huge impact on people. And finally, probably one of the biggest challenges, and again we've talked about it very much this morning about challenging the long hours norm, is around what we do when we've got those very short-term, very high demands on our job. So I think we can all agree when the pressure is manageable, you know, we have time to have the conversations that we need to. But when you have a situation where, for example, you've got a tender or you've got a very, very short deadline, that's when the real pressure point comes, because that's where people start to make mistakes, that's where people start to just really lose the will to be able to have those sorts of conversations. So it's about looking at those risk factors and really identifying where we can get in there and make sure that we've achieved those and driven some improvements in there. And then the final area is around the relationship between a staff member and their line manager. So again, as we've talked about this morning, I think Joe touched on it, actually the really important point is that interaction that you have between a member of staff and their line manager. And actually we found that that's one of the key risk factors. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable talking to their line manager, then they're probably not going to feel comfortable talking about their well-being. So for us, that's about really role modelling people's behaviours and trying to help both the line manager and individuals to be able to talk about what, their health and their well-being and have those conversations.
Thanks. Just when Catherine mentioned about Chris and his team, there's only me, if that helps.
Kind.
It's made me sound really, really big. I do sit in the health and safety team, but there is just me. So 8,000 people and me. But to help that, this is where it moves on to here and links in nicely. To do that, I have to then create a network of wellbeing champions. Now, we've got over 70 offices in the UK, and I've got 110, 115 wellbeing champions. Some of them are sat in this room today. You don't have to put your hands up, but thank you for being here for support. So they're throughout the business, and they are the advocates of wellbeing. They are people who are passionate about supporting the programme. They are leaders in their location of the safety, health and wellbeing culture. They drive initiatives, they help support me with the risk-based strategy that I have. They look at local things that are there that the people locally want to engage into. And without them, we wouldn't be able to keep this culture moving in the right direction. And I think we're really starting to get momentum, considering we've only probably been going for about 18 months. Okay. The next risk factor that we identified was looking at mental health. Okay, we all know about it, but we started to look at real data to understand what our risks were in the business, some of the hotspots. So I went to the business and said, look, I think we need mental health first aiders. And the first thing they said was no. And I said, okay, I'll challenge that. So I went away and trained 12 mental health first aiders, and then did some analysis of their interactions, and then sold it back to the business and said, look at the benefit they're having. Today, we have 90 mental health first aiders across our 70+ offices. Big advocates of supporting mental wellbeing in the workplace. They know the signposting on where to go. It's very easy to say if it's work related, just go and speak to your line manager. But relationships are not always easy with your line manager. So they have to have different resources to go to. We've got line managers manager, we've got HR, we've got an employee assistance program. We've got companies, organisations like CIHT, Mind, Samaritans. It's understanding all these resources that we have available, but making sure everybody knows about them. We also have an online health and wellbeing assessment. Now, I'm from a clinical background for physiology, and all I've ever done is give people face-to-face medicals. I switched it on its head and went, do you know what? If we could get our people to understand their lifestyle habits and the behaviours that drive or are the root causes to ill health or injury, then we can give them the opportunity to take personal ownership and create change. Now that assessment's been going for 18 months or so, and I'm so pleased to say we've got 75% engagement across the whole business. So with 8,000 people, 6,500 people have completed the online assessment, either once, twice, maybe 15 times over the past 18 months. And it really does pick out our key risk factors. And you won't be surprised that our key risk factor, being a consultancy engineering company, is we sit on our bums all day. Movement. Movement's so heavily closely linked to physical and mental well-being. So all our initiatives at the moment are driven by people engaging in that. And finally, this is how I really got leadership and cultural change, is created a safety, health and wellbeing steering group. I've taken people from corporate real estate, HR, rewards and benefits, health and safety, operations, marketing communications, all come together every month. We look at what our risk factors are, what initiatives we're going to put in place, and we cascade that information and get complete buy-in across the entire business. And I'm pleased to say, again, 12 months down the line, this is really, really working and been so powerful in getting change within the organisation.
Okay, so Chris has mentioned a couple of the outcomes, and obviously we've talked a lot this morning about measures and how to measure the success of any sort of thing, wellbeing initiative. As Chris mentioned, this has only been happening for about a year, so we've only had about a year's worth of data, and one of Chris's key challenges is to be analysing the trends in that data all the time to understand sort of where our risk factors are. I think when I saw these, as I say, from a kind of layperson's perspective, the statistic that had the biggest impact on me was the 700 people attending our weekly mindfulness sessions. So this is something that that we run within the business. Every week we have a half-an-hour mindfulness session which people can dial into, or they can take that offline. It's recorded, and we've got over 700 subscribers to that. So, you know, that's nearly 10% of our UK workforce every single week are taking the time to indulge in that mindfulness and just taking a little bit of time for them, which I think is you know, really important. But what we wanted to leave you with is, as I say, key to all of this, you know, sort of moving away from all of the nice corporate things we're doing. The biggest thing that we've tried to do is just get people to have the conversations and start to normalise the conversations around their own health and safety and well-being, and to understand where they can go for, you know, signposting for resources.